September 2005. I'm no longer working at Frame Art Galleries at this point. They've decided to shut down the Westlake location, which means they no longer needed my services. So I was let go. But not to worry, my unemployment status in September of 2005 isn't going to last that long. But it gave me time to read some books. There's always time to read books. So, let's jump right in. And the first book that I read in September of 2005 should be no surprise to anyone who watched and remembers the last video in this series. It's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Wicked Willow. Yes. Let me start that over because I threw myself for a loop. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Wicked Willow 3, Broken Sunrise by Ivan Navarro, the final book in the Wicked Willow trilogy, which is an alternate history. At the end of season 6, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, some stuff happens. Willow becomes evil, becomes an evil witch. And spoilers for a very old show, by the end of the season, she's redeemed. But in this trilogy, there's a point where the story changes, and so we've got this 3-book series where Willow maintains her evil status. She's trying to bring back her murdered girlfriend, Tara, and so in the first 2 books, she's dealing with Tara's ghost, trying to bring her back to life. She's got a coven that sometimes is on her side, sometimes isn't. She's dealing with the Scooby Gang, who are trying to bring her back to the light side. So in this book, Tara's ghost has disappeared. Willow doesn't know what the hell's going on, but her coven reminds her that whenever she just completely gives into her anger, she screws things up. So she's trying to be a little more circumspect. Spike and Oz are her captives. Scooby Gang's trying to get them back. All sorts of stuff going on. I love a good alternate history. The biggest problem with this whole story, and spoilers, again, for the books now, apparently the editors or somebody other than the author mandated that this book end in such a way that it would basically tie back into the TV series continuity, which kind of sucks. I would have rather seen things go completely haywire, completely dark, completely off the rails, but apparently Yvonne Navarro was sort of handcuffed in how far she could go because she had to bring it back and tie it back in to the TV show. But overall, I like this alternate look. I was looking at some reviews, and people said that the whole story was pointless because it tied back into the TV series. But as with most things, I say if you were entertained reading it, then it's not pointless. Whether or not you're happy with the ending, it was still entertaining. Next up, Tyrannosaur Canyon by Douglas Preston, half of Preston and Child. In this book, a moon rock has been missing for 30 years. There's, what does this say in the description? 5 buckets of blood-filled sand, a monk trying to save the world, something from space eons ago. It's very Michael Crichton. It's very Douglas Preston. Basically, you've got this mystery of the missing moon rock and these buckets of blood-filled sand and mysterious goings on. It's all going to tie into something from eons ago. I'm just using the same words over and over again. You've got evil government agencies and good government agencies, good guys, bad guys, running around. It's all going to tie into a place known as Tyrannosaur Canyon. And I don't want to give away what it is. It has to do with the extinction of the dinosaurs. But it's good, rollicking, scientific thriller stuff. I still personally prefer Preston and Child when they're writing together, but I've enjoyed their solo stuff, each of their solo stuffs as well. But Tyrannosaur Canyon, Douglas Preston, if you like that Michael Crichton type stuff, or if you like just reading the Preston and Child stuff, give this one a try. After that, we have Vampire Hunter D by Hideyuki Kikuchi. Pardon me for my pronunciations. This is the very first Vampire Hunter D novel. There's an entire series. Later this year, the 8th omnibus is coming out, and I believe each omnibus has 3 novels in it. And I don't know how many more there might be after that, but right off the bat, you're looking at 24 Vampire Hunter D novels. So I love that these take place in the year 12,090 AD, and it's after humans have been oppressed by vampires for 300 years, or it's been 300 years since humans were oppressed by vampires. I think it's 300 years since that we sort of threw off the yoke of our vampire masters, but the vampires are still out there. Each village, it's a post-apocalyptic kind of world. Each village has a vampire hunter. They have guns and swords, and the most famous, the most fearsome is Vampire Hunter D, and this is his first adventure, saving the world from vampires. I don't remember how I felt about it. I am interested in reading more, or at least rereading this one, and then if I enjoy that well enough, moving on to the next, seeing if it's a series worth pursuing. Very popular anime series, and I think a manga as well. Vampire Hunter D. I'm not going to mangle the author's name. Hideyuki Kikuchi. I don't know where the accent goes on the last name. My apologies again. Next up, Caught Stealing by Charlie Huston. I read this because Charlie Huston was writing, I believe it was Moon Knight. He was the new writer. You know what? Let's look this up. I think I started reading Dwayne Swarzynski because he was writing Iron Fist, and I think it was Charlie Huston that was writing Moon Knight. I'd never heard of the guy before. Let's see. Get to watch me. Let's do that. Pretty exciting watching a dude on his phone. Moon Knight. There we go. 2006. Huston joined the list of print authors who have written American comic books. In April 2006, Marvel Comics launched Huston's reboot of the Marvel character Moon Knight. Huston wrote the first 12 issues of the series. Great series, I thought. Yes. So anyway, I've always loved Moon Knight. New Moon Knight series coming out. Who's this guy writing it? It's Charlie Huston. So I looked up, what should I be reading by this guy? Caught Stealing. It is the first in the Henry Thompson, I had to check the name, Henry Thompson trilogy. Henry Thompson is an ex-baseball player who's a bartender now, and one day he gets the shit kicked out of him by a couple of, I believe it's Russian mobsters, who want something that he doesn't have. He doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. This is one of those fast-paced, mistaken identity kind of thrillers that is absolutely fantastic. Now, old Charlie Huston here doesn't use quotation marks, just an M dash to be an M dash before each line of dialogue, but I found this in no way confusing. I thought it read perfectly smoothly, no problems with it whatsoever. It's quick, it's fun, it's violent, and it's a trilogy that escalates with each book. And this book, I don't know if they're doing the whole trilogy, but at least this book being made into a major motion picture. I think it was a teaser trailer, and it's got Matt Smith of Doctor Who fame, amongst other things. It's got Matt Smith with a mohawk in it. Um, Definitely looking forward to checking out the movie. And this is absolutely a book that I need to buy again. The whole trilogy. It was just fantastic. I know why I don't own it, because I've had to sell books to pay bills in the past, and unfortunately, sometimes that's books I really, really like. Um, but Caught Stealing Charlie Houston, a great crime novel. Then we have something that sounds like a crime novel, sort of is, but not nearly in the same vein. Spider-Man Down These Mean Streets by Keith R.A. DeCandido. And in this book, there's a new drug on the streets of New York called Triple X that's a mix of ecstasy and gamma radiation. So the people that are taking it aren't just getting high, but they're being mutated, essentially. Not sure I should be using the word mutated when I'm talking about a Marvel story, because this isn't the X-Men. But they're being changed because of the gamma radiation, kind of becoming rage monsters. But not like 28 Days Later rage monsters, more Incredible Hulk rage monsters. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, Spider-Man, who at this point in his life, Peter Parker is a high school science teacher, but of course he has to deal with it. He has to actually team up with the NYPD to figure out what's going on, where this drug is coming from, how they can stop it, and it could possibly be, chances are it's going to be, an old Spider-Man villain who's using this in a bid to crush New York City. Spider-Man Down These Mean Streets, Keith R.A. DeCandido. I actually have it. I believe it's in one of the omnibuy that I have. That the Titan, perhaps, published a few years ago. They took some of the old Marvel trilogies and standalone books and published omnibuses. And I think this is in one of those, but I didn't feel like digging it out. But I do have a book to show you. I'm going to read the back cover copy because it's just fantastic. But this is, excuse me, The Big Head by Edward Lee from Overlook Connection Press. This edition is. This is the back cover copy. Rape, murder, brain eating. Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that first word. But then I'm not monetized, so does it matter? The Big Head. Who is he? What is he? An inbred homicidal pervert? A supernatural psychopath? Who or whatever he is, he's on a roll now, raging out of the Virginia backwoods and leaving in his wake a trail of blood, guts, and disgust far beyond the limits of your reckoning. Jerica. Sex addict, drug addict, a woman so far out of control she would make Linda Lovelace look like a schoolmarm. And little does she know, the Big Head is coming for her. The Abbey, closed for years. Wroxeter Abbey is back in business, haunted by two nuns from hell. Erotopathic, clinically demented, gross beyond belief. To the faithful priest, Father Alexander, they will do things that absolutely beggar description. I love the copy on some of these books. So, when it comes to Edward Lee, I would say the two books most associated with him, the two books that if you're talking to an Edward Lee fan, and you say, what are the Edward Lee books? It's going to be Header and The Big Head. Could be wrong about this. That's my impression from the Edward Lee people that I know. Yeah, he's done some great stuff. a more casual fan might pick something from his leisure days. A more just modern fan might pick some of his Lovecraftian stuff. But I really think Header and the Big Header, the two big ones. We'll get to Header in a future video. And I was still early in my Edward Lee reading, as you know, if you follow this series. And this book, once again, it just sort of blew my mind what an author could and would put on the page. Just insane scenes. And I just noticed that this book seems to have my name on the cover. Except it's not actually my name. I mean, technically, it is my name. But, what are we looking for? Yes. Cover and interior art by Eric Wilson. But it's Eric with a K. So I just noticed. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. It's Eric with a K, 1999. But anyway, yeah, this book, it just blew me away in what it did, where it went. And this, I was pretty sure and had to double check the author's note at the beginning. This is what Edward Lee calls, at least back in January of 1999, the author's preferred text. So in 97, Dave Barnett and Necro Publications printed the first edition of The Big Head, but asked Lee to change some stuff in the last 20 pages. And Lee was like, yeah, sure, no problem, fine. Changes made. But then when they decided to publish this edition, this version, which Dave Hinchberger has been kind enough to have published, is the original version. It's the same book as the Necro edition, except for changes in the final 20 pages. And he doesn't say in this author's note what those changes are, because he says that'll spoil the end of the book. I'm trying to remember if I've read both versions. Obviously, I read this version. I'm trying to remember if I looked up or found a copy somewhere of those final 20 pages in the Necro version so that I could read them. But anyway, extreme horror, absolutely fantastic. Recently, sequel, I think it's called The Big Head's Junk sequel or companion piece. I don't know because I haven't read it yet, but I have it. But that recently came out. I believe The Big Head has been revisited a few times. Don't take my word on that. There's a lot of Edward Lee I have that I haven't even read yet. There was a trailer for a movie made, and I believe that was the extent of it. It's just some people got together and made with sort of a proof of concept thing. I think they made a trailer showing it around, hoping maybe they would get the financing to actually make the movie. I believe, again, this is my recollection from way back in the day, but very, very cool trailer. See if you can find that. I don't know if it's still on YouTube. I believe that's where I saw it. Anyway, The Big Head by Edward Lee. A must read for extreme horror fans, for Edward Lee fans. Then we jump from that to Lost in a Good Book by Jasper Fforde. This is the second book in the Thursday Next series, where people can jump into and out of books. And Thursday Next, in this book, her lover, significant other, whatever, is eradicated. Not sure what that means. And she becomes basically like a book cop, and her mentor or trainer is Miss Havisham from Dickens, who's, crusty old lady, doesn't want to train or mentor anyone. And there's a There's some people that are trying to authenticate possibly a long lost play from Shakespeare, but weird stuff's going down inside books, and uh, there's a this weird pink stuff that might eradicate the real world. And so Thursday Next is jumping from book to book, Beatrix Potter to um, Edgar Allan Poe, trying to figure uneradicate her lover or significant other, whatever he is, and stop this pink stuff. Fun books. I think now, I might have said when I talked about the first book, The Air Affair, that was the only one I read. Obviously, I read the second one, but now I really think now that this is the last book that I read in this series. Not even sure how many there are in the series, but fun stuff. Lost in a Good Book by Jasper Fforde. Then, another book 3. We started with a book 3, not quite ending with a book 3, but we have Green Lantern Sleepers book 3 by Christopher J. Priest. I don't even remember. I'm not going to go back and look. Might even be in the other notebook when I read the first 2 books in this series. It's a Green Lantern trilogy. I believe the first book featured Kyle Rayner, the second book Alan Scott. Now we've got Hal Jordan, although I think they've all been in all of them. But now Hal Jordan, who's been stripped of his powers, which essentially means his ring was taken away, but he still has to fight the clones of Sinestro and may have to sacrifice himself to do it. If you're a Green Lantern fan, which I am, when the character's written well, it's a fun trilogy, and you get to see the different personalities of the different Green Lanterns, which is always interesting. You know, some people, Hal Jordan's their favorite, some people Kyle Rayner, some people Alan Scott, some people Guy Gardner. Is Guy Gardner's anybody's favorite? Maybe after the new Superman movie. A lot of people, Jon Stewart. He was the featured Green Lantern in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon, and really brought him to the attention of a lot of people who fell in love with that character. And some people prefer some of the alien Green Lanterns, like Kilowog. I'm a Jessica Cruz fan myself, but I also like Hal Jordan and Kyle Rayner. Anyway, Green Lantern Sleepers Book 3, Christopher J. Priest. The penultimate book for September 2005, Bad Money by Ed Gorman. This is a book that takes place sometime between, I have to check my notes here, 1885 and 1897. How do I know that? Well, the book is about Secret Service agent Dev Mallory. He's a dude that deals with counterfeiters, and he's been put on a case by President Cleveland. Cleveland was president for 2 non-consecutive terms between 1885 and 1897. I believe it was 2 non-consecutive terms. How that never happens. Well, yes, it would have to be, because if 85 would be to 89. And then, anyway, I'm just thrown by the idea that someone could serve as president for 2 consecutive terms. That's crazy. Dev Mallory, Secret Service agent, sent by President Cleveland to take down some counterfeiters in the old-ish West, before they can, destroy the economy. It's Ed Gorman. It's good writing. And he likes to mix his Western chops, his Western writing chops, with his mystery writing chops. Throw those 2 things together, and I enjoy. I think because of To Live and Die in L.A., I like Secret Service agents who are taking down counterfeiters, not necessarily the Secret Service agents who are protecting politicians, which is fine, but I just like the whole counterfeiter thing going on. So Bad Money by Ed Gorman. The last book that I read in September of 2005 is All Eves Hallows by Dean Wesley Smith. And this is a book of the City Knights. Knights with a K. And, yes, I think it's with a K. Let's do a quick one of these. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Yes, of course it is. So, this is a world, it's our world, except that magical creatures, monstrous creatures, fantastical creatures have been coexisting with people in hiding for thousands and thousands of years. So the general populace does not know that there are witches and werewolves and vampires and trolls and dragons and all these other things. Our main character is a young woman by the name of Billy who starts to see these things. And she thinks maybe she's been drugged, maybe something's food poisoning, something's making her hallucinate, until she's contacted and recruited by the City Knights. I believe the main threat in this is this ancient sorceress who's tired of living in the closet and wants to essentially throw a coming out party by taking over New York, releasing a monstrous beast. And so Billy is recruited by the City Knights, who are an organization that's been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, protecting the everyday world from the hidden world. And Billy's now going to be a part of that. So if that's the kind of thing you like, urban fantasy type of thing, Dean Wesley Smith writes a lot of different stuff. I've read, I think he's done a lot of media tie-ins. I feel like Star Trek is like was his bread and butter. But fun, just fun, urban fantasy with horror elements, but also the fantastical elements. All Eves Hallows by Dean Wesley Smith. And that is everything that I read in September of 2005. My question for this video is, if you have a trilogy of books, do you read them all at once? Or do you spread them out? If a book comes out, it's book one, it tells you this is book one of a trilogy. Do you wait until all three are out before you even start? Or will you read the first one as soon as you get it, it's brand new, and then when the second one comes out, you grab it, you read it, and then when the third one comes out, you grab it and you read it. What are your trilogy reading habits? For me, it depends. Obviously, with the Buffy the Vampire Slayer Wicked Willow thing, I just read all three in a row. Also, obviously, with the Green Lantern thing, I didn't. I believe I read the first two and then waited however long. And I don't remember if that's because I bought the first two after they'd both come out and had to wait for the third one. I don't recall. The Pine Deep trilogy by Jonathan Mayberry, I read the first one, and then it was a long time before I read the rest. And I believe I reread the first one, then the second one, then the third one, all straight in a row. The Victor Gischler, I can't remember the overarching name of the trilogy, but I can see the books. A Rumor of Kings, A Rage of Sabers, The Bones of the World. I read the first one, and then I was just going to wait a little bit, and did wait a little bit before reading the second one. Not so long that I forgot what had gone on. And planned on waiting a little bit, read a few other things, and then read the third one. But the ending of the second one was such a gut punch, there was no way I wasn't just grabbing that third one immediately and reading it. I mean, I already owned all three, so it's not like I had to go out and buy it. So I guess my answer to the question is, depends on my mood. Also, if they're tiny books, let's see. Let me flip back here just to get the names of the books here. Another trilogy that I read: Bride of the Slime Monster, Revenge of the Fluffy Bunnies, and Oh, Slaves of the Volcano God was actually the first one. Read those in the wrong order. I mean, those books were probably 200 pages each. Very easy to just read all three right in a row. It's just like reading one big book. Um, but if they're huge, I don't like to get burned out on reading the same author too much all at once, which is why I was not going to read all three Pine Deeps without a gap in between, but it ended up being an October thing because they take place at Halloween. Um, but if they're 400, 500 pages per book, I'm going to read one, read a few things in between, and then before I jump into the next one, just to try to avoid burnout. Excuse me. So really, not much of an answer from me. Um, but what about you? Now I will say, okay, here's something definitive. If it's a brand new book, um, I'll buy the first one and I'll read it. There's going to be a caveat to this, but I'll buy the first one and I'll read it and not worry about when the next one's going to come out. And then when the next one comes out, I'll be excited. Hopefully the first one was good. Next one comes out, I'm going to be all excited. I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to read it. And then hopefully that one's great. And then I'll be excited for the third one to come out. And I'll pick it up and I'll read it as soon as it comes out. Caveat, I don't always do that. I have all three books so far of The Lost Level by Brian Keene. I've only read the first one, but I have 2 and 3. Number 4 isn't out yet. I have the first 3 books of the Labyrinth series, which I believe is supposed to be 5, 6, or 7 books. I haven't read any of those yet. So, I mean, these aren't hard and fast rules. I want to with the Labyrinth series. I don't know that I'm going to read it. I don't think I'm going to read it all at once. But I feel like I'm waiting for the entire series to be finished before I dive in. I want to make sure I have it all before I dive into it. Not that, if the last book never comes out, it's not like I'm not going to read the other ones, but I'm a crazy person. I don't have any answers, but maybe, hopefully, you do. Trilogy reading habits, let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, I'll have links for my Instagram and Bluesky in the description below. And that's all I've got for you this week. So until next week, read more books.